Morning. It's Tuesday, September 8th, the day after Labor Day. I hope all of you had a wonderful Labor Day, that you're not wasted from sitting in the backyard in the sun. Hope you got out and walked on the boardwalk at Sunken Meadow Park, or you went over to look at the water at Jones Beach, or maybe you just drove around hoping to see some other people driving around. In any event, I want to talk to you today about a topic that I had a conversation with my son about. And this deals with protesting. And it's backed up by a story that I saw, like a video of a wealthy young woman, 20 years old, parents doing very well in life. The mother owns an architectural design firm. The father is a psychiatrist, a child psychiatrist. They live in a penthouse on the east side of Manhattan that costs millions of dollars, right? And this young lady was protesting along with, I don't know whether they were her friends or not. And all of a sudden, they jumped out of the crowd. And they had clubs or hammers in their hand, and they were breaking store windows for no reason. They didn't loot. They just went down the street breaking store windows. And there were no cops around, but they were caught somewhere, and she was arrested. And then I said something to my son about what kind of punishment should she have. I think, she should serve some time. Maybe jail is too harsh for a 20-year-old. But certainly a year or two of some kind of community service would be appropriate. But then it struck me that there really weren't many policemen around at that point. And I said to him, because it ran through my mind, I said, why don't the protesters have a team that comes with them? There are protesters too, but are designated protest managers. And maybe they would wear a slightly different shirt that indicates that they are protest managers. And their job is not to do anything except when somebody gets out of line, warn them that they are about to call the police. Now, I thought that was a pretty good idea. Why should the police be responsible for every time there's a protest? It's impossible to keep up with all of this. So why don't they have a little help from the protesters themselves? The protesters want it to be a peaceful protest. So if they designated a handful of people or a certain group and maybe even gave them some training. I'm sure if they went to some police station and said, this is what we'd like to do, train us a little bit on how to do it. And maybe that would happen. Maybe that would be a good thing. There would be some organization in the protests, not people roaming up and down the streets, wandering around like they're lost. Then when something happens, everybody's running in every other direction. So I ask you, should the protesters be responsible for the activities of the crowd that they drew? Should the organization be responsible? Should there be some kind of oversight? Should there be trained people trained to explain to the protesters what they're supposed to be doing at a protest? Checking to see whether the signs are appropriate, that they're not inflammatory? Of course, all of this stuff is in the view. It's in what you see. It's in what you make of it. Most people will look at a sign and say, that's okay. And then there'll always be somebody that could object to the language in the sign. So when you think about it, if you want the protest to be a really peaceful protest, then you should take some responsibility to make sure it is a peaceful protest. There should be some formal, some standard, some formal orientation. How's that? Orientation. That's a good word. Some formal orientation for those who are going to protest. You don't just show up and decide that you're going to do whatever you feel like doing And then somebody should be on the lookout for people who appear in black masks. Well, now everybody's wearing a mask, so you can't blame them for wearing a black mask. But these people who broke the store windows were dressed totally in black, and maybe that's an indication of trouble. So I don't know. And maybe people should sign in. Maybe there should be registration of the protests. So then if something goes wrong, the people can turn over and they would have witnesses to call or something. Anyhow, this was a thought that flashed through my mind. And I figured, it's Labor Day when I thought about it. And so maybe the lack of work is weighing on my brain. But I'll tell you one thing I'm sure of, that the violence and the looting and the rioting that have somehow become part of these protests is not encouraging people to continue with the cause. You want to win this battle. You have to figure out a way to contribute to the controlling of the crowds. You need to have some form of communication set up so that these looters and rioters who come just to loot and riot are dealt with appropriately. That is part of your responsibility as an organizer. And I realize that cooperating with the police at this point is probably against your credo. But if you want this cause to succeed, you have to come to grips with the fact that the police could be your friends and concentrate on something that's a little bit different than police brutality. How about fighting for education and opportunity? In any event, that's what I have for this morning. So I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.